Hi guys. So meanwhile we have developed customer microservice and fraud detection microservice. So these two microservices are working independently now, but our customer microservice needs to call fraud detection microservice in order to check if the registered customer is a fraudulent or a legitimate customer. So as we have seen in our architecture diagram, our customer microservice calls to fraud detection microservice to check for the fraud, and this fraud detection service checks the fraud history of the customer and saves it into a fraud history table. So in order to make a call from customer to fraud detection microservice, we have couple of ways in which we can call one microservice from other microservice. So there is one way through REST template we can call other microservice. There is one other way, web client. Using web client also we can give asynchronous calls from one microservice to other microservice. So for now we'll just have a look at REST template. So we'll just try to implement it in our customer microservice. So we have this customer controller from where we register our customer to our system. So while registering, we are building this customer entity object, and we are saving it to a customer database and returning that object from here. But for uh, instead of returning here, we'll just do save and flush will give us the customer ID. So if you see in customer, we have this private key which will be generated once it is saved to database. So for that same purpose, we are using save and flush method. So it use with this, customer will be saved to database and will get the ID of customer in this step itself, and we need to pass this customer ID to a fraud detection service. So we'll use that customer ID here. But before uh, going uh, going to REST template, we need some configuration to be done. So we'll just add one class, customer config. Sorry, I just misspelled it. And this is our configuration class, so we'll need to annotate with @configuration, and we need to inject one bean from here for injecting REST template into our project. So we'll create one method, public REST template uh, template will return object of REST template from here. So we need to annotate this method with @bean method. So this will inject a bean when our application starts. This bean, REST template bean, will be created, and we can use that bean into our project, into our customer controller basically. So from customer controller, now we want to, from customer service basically, we want to make a call to fraud detection service. Uh, so here we'll use REST template private will, as we are using uh, all our constructor here, it will be injected into our project. So we have got the customer ID here as we have saved it to customer database. So we'll use that customer ID to pass it on to fraud detection service. So we'll use this get for object method, wherein we need to pass URL, response object type, and and the request parameter for that particular m- method which we are calling from other microservice. So get for object, then we'll have URL. So URL in our case is http colon local host, and our fraud detection service is running on 8082, then API slash v1 slash fraud. So this is sorry, fraud detection, it's a fraud only. Then this is the URL, then we need to pass response entity. So from fraud detection service we are getting response entity as fraud detection result. So it will be fraud result dot class. So we don't have this class in our application, so we need to just copy this fraud detection result class into our application customer microservice. So now it's ready for us. Just it's just imported, and we'll pass customer dot id. So we'll be passing this id to uh, fraud service for which fraud detection will happen. So after this call, it will uh, uh, it will just make sure this registered customer is fraud customer or not, and it will save fraud detection checks result into fraud detection history database table. So we'll just test this. So for now it's not returning anything, just return a customer from here. So it will return a registered customer. I just missed one part in URL which we wanted to add. In customer ID we are passing it to fraud detection service from here, and we are initiating that value from with this customer.getID. So we'll just test it. I'm just I'm just sending this object, customer object, to customer service, and from customer it will call fraud detection service. So if you see, we have this debug point here to REST template. This will just pass this customer ID to fraud detection service. So if I do F4, then we can see this uh, logs and custom fraud application, wherein we can see this customer history table is uh, populated with some data for customer one which we created in customer microservice. We'll also see if this customer and fraud detection database has been populated after this call. So we'll just verify this. If we can see this customer table, it's yeah, so we can see this customer has been populated in customer database, and same way fraud detection should also have fraud check history for this particular customer. So let's just verify this. View all rows. Yeah, so this has been also populated with this customer ID 1 and fraud check history false. So we have been successfully able to call fraud detection service from customer microservice now.